Hi everyone, I'm just going to share my screen with you. There we go. You can hear my computer gasping in the background. It's showing its age. I'm Lucy Hinney. I'm one of the Let's Connect working group members. I also work part-time at Wikimedia UK. I'm from Scotland originally, so I do talk quite quickly, so I'll try to speak a little slower today. I'd like to pass over to Sally for an introduction also.
Hola a todos, yo soy Cele, voy a estar comoderando con Lucy en español toda la sesión. Soy parte de la Fundación Wikimedia, soy parte del equipo de diversidad, equidad e inclusión. Estoy basada en Costa Rica, mis pronombres son ella y súper contenta de tenerles a todos por acá.
Excellent. So we'll be working in both Spanish and English today, which is really exciting. And as Jessica mentioned, there are options in terms of interpretation channels for you. I am so excited to welcome Kira and Melissa from Art+Feminism today. For those of you for whom this is your first clinic, Let's Connect is a working group that works across affiliates throughout the Wikimedia Foundation. It's a peer learning program that allows us to, just changing my slide here. It's a peer learning program that's operated as a joint community foundation initiative where we share skills and knowledge across the globe. We are here to have a good time. We like to make people feel comfortable and confident. And we believe that we have something to learn from anyone, no matter their experience. Now, the slides that we are using today are available in all 4 languages, English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And we'll be able to put those links in the chat for you so that you can use the slides in the language you are most comfortable with. So we are here today to learn from Kira and Melissa and their work with Art+Feminism. And our key learning outcome is to raise awareness of the work that goes into successful collective action. So things like community care statements and unlearning practices, both of which Melissa and Kira will talk about today. We are also, let me just move on to my next slide. Do you know that feeling when you have too many screens? I have too many screens today. Oh, this is a nice, easy one. This is the agenda. So we are currently working on the welcome and icebreaker, which will be the next 10 or so minutes. Our session today will be split into 3 sections. The first will be about community care. And at the end of that session, we will do a little bit of group exercise work. The second part will be about the practicalities of collective action. That will be the longest session that we have today, and that will be the real kind of heart of what we're speaking about. And again, you'll be offered an opportunity to do some individual work and reflect on your own experience there. And finally, we'll talk a little about consulting on embedded action, once again with a moment for you to think about how this impacts your own work and practice. And then we will have my favorite part of any clinic, which is the full clinic discussion, where we can really talk to one another about things that we would like to know more about and really make the most of Kira and Melissa's knowledge to ask them questions about things that really matter to us and to the work that we do here at the foundation and in all our affiliates. So we're going to start with an icebreaker. Now, I believe it was Sally who introduced us to this amazing concept of like 36 questions for civic love. And they're a great set of questions, and I will share the link with you before the end of the session. So we've based our icebreaker questions on this. I'm going to share them in the chat because I don't have enough windows open, so I thought I would open the chat too. So this is the icebreaker Jamboard. So there are 2 questions on slide 1, and you can answer in any language you like. We would like to ask you, what is the best thing I can eat in your neighborhood? Or we can eat, not specifically me, everyone. What is the best thing that everyone and anyone could eat in your neighborhood? And the second question on slide number 2 is, what sound wakes you at the start of your day? So I will tell you my answers verbally while you're getting a chance to drop your answers on the Jamboard. The best thing you can eat in my neighborhood, there is a bakery 2 blocks down from me that makes amazing Italian focaccia bread, which is unusual because I live in England in a town called York, but they make amazing focaccia. But unfortunately, it's impossible to eat just half of it, and you kind of end up eating quite a lot of it. And in terms of what wakes me up in the morning, I wonder if this will be a common answer. But my right on cue, my cat meowing usually wakes me up in the morning, and he's come to say hello. So those are my answers. And if you can't write them in the Jamboard, if you're having any difficulty with that, please just pop your answers, or put your answers rather, in the chat, and we can add them to the board for you.
Por cierto, sobre estas preguntas, es parte del National Housing Museum. Es un proyecto que tienen, que es muy lindo, que habla sobre también prácticas de cuidado cívico, ¿no? Y estas preguntas realmente son un flujo que viene como de la pregunta 1, que es una pregunta bastante abierta, como por ejemplo esta, sobre qué nos gusta o el olor de nuestra cocina que nos guste más y demás, hasta llegar a preguntas mucho más, ¿cómo podría decir? Como mucho más fuertes, si se quiere, y son alrededor de, por ejemplo, qué son esas cosas que necesitamos para sentirnos cuidados, cuáles son las cosas que hacen que nos sintamos inseguros. Entonces es como un flujo muy lindo que es casi procesal. Entonces uno empieza desde un lugar muy básico y termina en un lugar como muy profundo. Ahora se los vamos a compartir y es muy bonito.
Amazing. The other thing that I've just remembered is that we also have I call it kind of a Dropbox document, like just a place for us to put any links that someone brings up in the chat, any kind of answers to questions. It's really just like a whiteboard for all of us to use. I'm going to pop that in the chat. Put that, you need to stop saying pop. It's a very British thing to say, pop that in the chat. I'm going to put that in the chat. It has links to the things that we'll talk about today. And you can add anything you like that you'd like to remember, and it will be anonymous. And there is a link to the Jamboard there, but I will also pop that in the chat for you, Rashina. And I've opened up the Jamboard on my screen, so I hope that you can all see it. I really regret asking this question after lunch, because now I'm just hungry with like no excuse really for wanting to eat all these foods. Oh my goodness, lamb kebab, sugarcane juice, lucuma ice cream, oh crepes, fantastic, Italian restaurant, crumble cookies, Franzbrötchen made with cinnamon, raisins, and a lot of butter. Ooh, I like the sound of this. What are your favorites, Sally? What are you seeing that speaks to you with the foods?
Todo. Pero justo yo puse en el mío que en mi vecindario es un vecindario muy residencial, ¿no? Entonces no tenemos muchos restaurantes cerca ni nada así, pero hay un lugar muy cerca de acá que vende pupusas salvadoreñas. Para quienes no sepan qué son las pupusas salvadoreñas, están perdiendo algo grande de la vida. Es tortilla de maíz rellena de frijolitos y queso y chicharrón y ensalada de repollo.
Oh, amazing. Someone's even put a Wikipedia link. Amazing.
Y te hacen muy felices las pupusas.
Yeah.
También
Excellent.
recuerden que está el segundo, que hay hay una segunda pregunta también sobre qué sonido les despiertan cuando empiezan sus días, para que también nos cuenten. Me encanta que alguien puso el despertador.
Breck beer. It is food. Citation needed. What about waking up in the morning? What are people waking up to? Birds. My 2-year-old. Yep. Kids banging on doors. The Czech trams. I love that. Cockcrow. My grumpy cat. I didn't write that, but I feel it at a very fundamental level. Children arising at ungodly hours. Yep. And we have a couple in Spanish as well here, which is excellent. Well, I hope these questions have given you something to kind of make you smile and think about the first thing you will think about tomorrow when you hear sound is today's learning clinic, and the next time that you eat something tasty, you'll also think about the learning clinic. So that's how we get you. All right. Oh, neighbors. That's less good. Neighbors waking you up from upstairs. And I'm just skipping back to the food. Oh, sandwiches with gravy. Yes. Braised fish with atieke? With braised chicken? Oh my goodness. Right. Okay, this is a terrible question to ask because I am determined to visit all your neighborhoods now and eat all of these amazing foods. Yes. Oh, okay, I'm going to pull myself away from this, but please do continue to add questions. And as mentioned, there is a document that will link back to the Jamboard if you want to think about any of those foods and look them up or figure out how you can taste them. So, next slide is
Lucy,
actually,
sorry, just a notification to the interpreters, just to make sure that when Lucy is speaking in English, we are translating in the Spanish channel. Just a message for Francesca.
Okay. No worries. What I am going to do now is I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I am going to with great excitement, invite Kira and Melissa to take the wheel and introduce the first part of this presentation about the community care statement from Art and Feminism. So I'm going to pass over to Kira and Melissa just now. If you want to just check, you can screen share, and then once we've established that, I can there we go. I can mute myself and fade into the background. So thank you so much, Kira and Michelle. And we will, Melissa, Michelle, I don't know who Michelle is. I'm making up names now. Melissa and Kira, thank you so much. And yeah, please do take it away.
Thank you to the Let's Connect team. It's been so wonderful working with all of you on this session and the culture that's being cultivated with Let's Connect in general. My name is Kira Wisniewski and my pronouns are she and her. I want to welcome Jessica or anyone if I start speaking too fast, which I can do when I get excited, to just please unmute and ask me to slow down. I often don't. I'm suffering the same thing Lucy is with many screens, so I would just invite that unmute to please slow down. I do want to invite my colleague Melissa to introduce herself, and then we'll get into it.
Buenos días. Buenos días. Es un gusto estar aquí. Yo soy Melissa, vivo en Perú y soy parte de Arte y Feminismo desde el 2015. Yo empecé a editar en Wikipedia a raíz de Arte y Feminismo y estoy muy contenta de estar acá y también muy contenta de haber visto que hay muchísimo interés en trabajar temas de equidad dentro del movimiento Wikimedia. Así que espero poder compartir algo que les motive y les sea de utilidad.
Thanks, Melissa. So we want to start our discussion today with how we like to start a lot of our Art and Feminism events, which is with our Brave Friendly Spaces agreement. So here's a slide with text that reads, "We believe in brave, friendly spaces. The goal of this session is to create an encouraging space for collective learning. This requires intentional behavior where participants are conscious of and accountable for the effect of their statements and actions on others. We respect our experiences and the experiences of others and recognize we can't do this work without one another. We agree to hold each other accountable to foster a brave and friendly space." There is a link to the whole agreement on the slide, as well as the Art and Feminism logo in the bottom right. But as said, we're very excited to share today and hopefully, have time for that discussion too, which very much looking forward to. So we're going to first start talking about community care. So on this slide, it's a yellow background, and there's a screenshot from our Art and Feminism website for the community care page that has the full text as well as a link to view it on Wikimedia. So our original statement was a result of the COVID-19 global pandemic. And as we were launching our 2021 campaign, this was to just kind of bring you back to the time and space, was when vaccines were starting to be available in various capacities around the world, but definitely not everywhere. And various places were starting to open up. Our program manager, Nino Yubao, wrote the first draft of this and really has been instrumental in helping craft the organization's position on COVID safety. And ever since this first iteration of the statement, we've been updating it each year. But really at the core is we're asking a pretty simple question. What is safest for the most vulnerable people in your community? And just because a government is open or a building is open, is that really in the best interest of a capitalist society? What's safest for everyone in your community? The statement also offers other ways to participate in art and feminism, such as attending an online event, reading some of our research, and even as like passive as just like following us on social media. Just recognizing that during a pandemic and like the precarity of this work in general, as it has been well documented that it disproportionately affects a lot of the communities in which we're working with, that not everybody has the same capacity that they did prior to the pandemic, and that's okay. And we still think of people as part of being in community with them. We've also been encouraging virtual or hybrid events and have created some resources around that. And we've expanded our microfunding to support things like PPE purchases. This year, we also introduced a COVID precautions guide for in-person events. So on this screen, it is a blue background with a yellow box that says community care sideways, and then a screenshot from our Art and Feminism website with some of our virtual resources. So for those who are immune compromised, today is not much different than March 2020. And in our most recent update of the community care statement, that started like the launch of our year 10 campaign, we uplifted that we should still be offering virtual components just to help keeping that care and that safety centered. And speaking of year 10, for our year 10 celebration last month, using our own guides as a tool, we had a hybrid virtual components. And for the in-person part, we purchased air filters, communicated ahead of time that was an all-masked event in Houston, Texas. And I wanted to share some of the feedback we received about that. So here is a slide with an illustration from Lisa Volthrath from Interpreting Criminalization from the COVID Solidarity Project. It shows a melanated person wearing a mask and the words "mask up." And so now there are, let's see if this works. There we go. And now there's a quote that I'm going to read. If I had a significant amount of money, I'd give it to y'all for promoting masking and prevention like y'all are doing, requiring masking, promoting hygiene practices that minimize spread of infectious disease. Y'all kick ass. It's so refreshing to see disabled people not being discarded for once. And another quote, wish more events took this many precautions. If I was in Houston, I'd pull up in a heartbeat with a heart emoji. So I'm going to pause now.
Just a note to slow down a bit. Thank you.
Thank you for that. But also, I'm pausing now to hand it back over to the Let's Connect team.
So thank you so much, Kira. It's always really interesting and I think quite emotionally hard to think about those early days of the pandemic where we just didn't know what was happening, and to think about things like PPE in this context is really, yeah, it's a lot, and it's amazing work that Art and Feminism have been doing. This section is actually going to be led by Sally, but we are going to be asking you to use a tool called Padlet, Padlet. I'd be interested to know, just with reactions, how many of you have used Padlet in any format before? Rebecca's nodding. Rebecca knows what's up. Okay, Padlet is a very similar tool to a lot of ones we'll have used in the past 3 years. I'm going to share my screen just to show you how it functions. Then Sally will lead you in this exercise that Jessica has just shared with you. So this is the Padlet screen. And of course, there's a unicorn here. What you can see along the top are your prompts. So there are 2 questions. In all the different languages. We couldn't quite fit all of them on one screen, so some of the translations are down a little bit. If you want to add an answer, you can do this in a number of ways. So if I wanted to answer here under the Spanish prompt, I would click the plus sign. And this little beehive will turn up. I can add a subject, so I could write this as my answer. You don't have to add a subject if you don't want to. You can just add some text here. This is my answer to the question. Or there are some neat tools where you can add a file or image. You can take a photo of yourself if you feel that is relevant. You can attach a link. You can search for an image, which will take you to GIFs and images if that is something that you would like to use. You can see I've looked up for unicorns and support were my last 2 searches. So if I just pick another unicorn image, just for the sake of having one, as you can see, my computer's wheezing a little bit. Let's pick this flaming unicorn. I can add that there. And Jessica's pointed out you can add a video or music too. So those are 2 other things you can add. So everyone is welcome to contribute to this in any language you like, just using that plus button there. And I will pass over now to Sally to introduce the exercise. And Sally, if you like, I will keep the Jamboard open on my screen so that we don't have to switch screen shares.
Súper.
So I'll put myself on mute now.
Súper, súper. Muchas gracias, Lucy. Bueno, nuestro primer ejercicio, lo que nos interesa saber es un poco sobre las comunidades de práctica donde ustedes están basadas. También, ¿qué de las cosas que acaba de presentar Kira les resuenan dentro de sus mismas prácticas comunitarias? Para todas nosotras, por ejemplo, el tema de no solo la atención comunitaria, sino como las prácticas de cuidado colectiva, son prácticas que son inherentes desde el feminismo y desde lo comunitario. Entonces, el cuidado para nosotros es casi que una apuesta política y organizativa y colaborativa y colectiva para que todas nuestras organizaciones puedan seguir, ¿cuál sería la palabra? Floreciendo y fortaleciéndose. Una de las cosas que también nos parece importante es que si no nos cuidamos entre nosotros y si no nos cuidamos a lo interno y hacia lo externo, muchas de las veces vamos a terminar cansadas, vamos a terminar como en inglés burnt out, ¿verdad? Entonces es importante poder ver cuáles son estas prácticas, poder ver que podemos conocer y reconocer de otras prácticas que están realizando otras personas que también nos sirvan a nosotros como ejemplo. Entonces, por eso este primer ejercicio nos interesa ver qué le hace única a su comunidad, en la comunidad donde ustedes se encuentran, ¿verdad? Puede ser su comunidad activista, puede ser su comunidad territorial, si ustedes quieren contarnos sobre eso. Y también qué les resuena entonces de lo que les acabamos de presentar. Si tienen preguntas, porfa, pónganlas en el idioma que quieran en el chat o abran sus micrófonos y nos cuentan cuáles son sus dudas. No sé si quedó algo más que haga falta decir. ¿No? Súper. Entonces, para esto tenemos ahora mismo 10 minutos. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lucy. We have 10 minutes, right? For this part. Okay, gracias. Estoy con el Spanglish, discúlpenme. Entonces, bueno, tenemos 10 minutos y vamos a hablar un poco también sobre las respuestas que
minutes.
estoy viendo.
So I have 31 minutes past the hour. So if we go till maybe 40, and that will be just under 10 minutes for us. So yeah,
Súper.
have fun, use the gifts. And if you have any questions, please do just let us know.
También recuerden que no necesariamente tienen que ser respuestas necesariamente relacionadas al COVID, independientemente de que el statement, el Community Care Statement que presentó Kira nació a raíz de esto, ¿verdad? Sino que también podemos pensar en cuáles son cuestiones actuales de hoy en día, si la pandemia sigue siendo un punto de inflexión en términos de cuidado para todos nosotros. Podemos hablar sobre eso, pero también si hay otro tipo de aspectos, contextos, ya sean culturales, sociales, políticos y demás, que ustedes consideren relevantes, porfa, compártanlo también. Avísenme si voy muy rápido, porque yo sé que hablo como matraca. Súper.
I like that we have embraced the unicorn theme. I'm very pleased.
Yo quiero tratar de encontrar un gato unicornio. Quiero reiterar lo que puso Jessica en el chat también, de que si no pueden entrar al Padlet, si por ejemplo están desde sus celulares y demás, póngannos sus respuestas en el chat y nosotros podemos también pegarlas en el Padlet para que no sientan que tienen que también hacer como malabares en el dispositivo. Ay, entonces sí hay gatitos unicornios.
So I'm going to read some of the responses that have come in so far. It is, of course, totally okay if you want to just reflect on these in your own time. But if you do want to share anything, it is anonymous, and we would love to hear your thoughts. And this will stay in place after the event for us to reflect back on. So in terms of what makes communities unique, positive feedback, that we see each other. Lovely picture of Jess there on her bike. Oh, we have unicorn cats. We are meowgical. Incredible. We started as individual community organisers, bringing wiki projects closer to people who didn't even use Wikipedia as a resource. Eventually, we felt we needed to form an organised group to strengthen our capacities and widen our scope of work. That's amazing. Community makeup comes up a few times here. So there's one community made of young volunteers, mostly students and graduates. Ireland is unique. Obviously, yeah, you struggle with colonial and post-colonial legacies mixed with minority language, issues around representation of a very small Anglophone culture, competing against much larger and dominant narratives. But we punch well above our weight internationally. You do, Ireland. You're an amazing small affiliate. Rebecca actually ran a workshop along with Claudia on small affiliates for Let's Connect a month or so ago. Really fascinating stuff, really inspiring. Friendship, unique and open feminist network in German Wikipedia, amazing. Young girls from underprivileged rural areas are contributing for wiki platforms. Something here about meeting Croatian Wikimedians who've been ignored for decades and marginalized media wiki enthusiasts sticking to Zoom meetings in pandemic to try and get themselves organized. Yeah, it's funny how that allowed us to empower ourselves in some ways, having that focus and contributing online. I'm just going to roll up here. What aspects of the community care statement would be useful for your community? Be able to respect and value diversity. That is something that is very important. English is our third language, so we make it a point to deliver necessary information in our local language. Translation is also a form of community care, bridging the language gap. Let's put a little pin in that, because I think that will come up later with some of the things that we're going to talk about. And translation is a really important part of the kind of work that we all do. It's just amazing unicorn, meeting people when they're out, hybrid working guidelines, respecting each other, learning about empathy and how to practice it. This GIF of the I take a nap right here, I feel very seen by this GIF. This is how I feel quite often, and try and give myself space for rest and reflection, an important part. And again, above, someone has mentioned avoiding burnout. So I've covered some of the English ones here. I'm going to pass to Sally to look at some of the ones that have come through in Spanish. And please remember, you are welcome to share in French and Portuguese also, or in any language you would like.
Gracias. En español tenemos, por ejemplo, respetar las voces de las mujeres, que nos parece súper importante, ayudar a que las opiniones de las mujeres sean respetadas en las conversaciones online y offline. Creo que eso para muchas de las personas que venimos de grupos subrepresentados, ya seamos mujeres, comunidad LGBTIQ, personas racializadas, personas que su primer idioma no sea el inglés, por ejemplo, es importante pensar desde el respeto hacia todas estas identidades, ¿verdad? Y cómo se interseccionan estas identidades y los desafíos que les presentan. Entonces me parece súper lindo poder pensarlo desde ese lugar. Guías híbridas también, lo estoy traduciendo, ¿verdad? Ojo. Cómo hacer los eventos en persona que sean espacios más seguros en términos de COVID y en términos de la atmósfera en la que se están, en términos de la atmósfera y en términos también de prácticas alrededor del COVID. También tenemos por acá, bueno, meditación, veo un GIF de meditación. Comunidades transnacionales y transcontinentales también, por ejemplo, la comunidad lusófona, que es la comunidad de habla portuguesa, ¿verdad? ¿Cómo podemos crear prioridades, que el cuidado sea una prioridad? Esas son parte de las que estaban unas en español y otras también, bueno, que les traduje. Yo voy a compartir lo que yo puse también, que es la creación de espacios seguros que nos permitan compartir cuáles son nuestros desafíos, los diferentes contextos en los cuales nos movemos. Y eso. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta o algo extra que añadir? Recién estoy abriendo el chat, perdón. Perfecto. Entonces ahora le voy a pasar el micrófono porque ya hablé demasiado a Kira y a Melissa para que vayamos a la segunda parte.
Thank you. That was my first time. This is Kira speaking. That was my first time using Padlet. That was very fun with all of the GIFs. So exciting to see that activated. So to share a little bit more about kind of our journey, during the pandemic, I feel like there was the pandemic was awful. I don't want to sugarcoat that. It continues to be awful. But I do think that there are some pockets of silver lining, if you will. And one of that being is that it did kind of force us to slow down and have that reflection.
Kira, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to share your slides?
I will in just a moment.
Fantastic. Okay, I just wanted to check that I hadn't cut off preemptively.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I interrupted you just as you're talking about rest. I'll mute myself down.
It's okay. So the pandemic in some ways, required us to slow down. And which was great because as an organization, Art and Feminism started as a collective that became a nonprofit working collectively. We experienced tremendous growth early on, and it wasn't really sustainable. And internally, it was making us not always practice what our values were externally. So we did our first formal strategic planning during that time to do an entire mission and vision alignment. And one of those values was learning and unlearning. And then we also, so I'm going to share my screen now, had a 6-month programmatic pause, because really having things like a strategic plan, for instance, isn't just like, well, checklist, we did it, but it's actually the work of putting plans into action. So this slide, it says a heading of organizational pause, and then there are 4 bullet points that we're gonna go over briefly. So we had a 6-month programmatic pause from August to December of 2021, where we really worked internally on that unlearning to improve and create internal anti-oppression policies and mechanisms. And we specifically focused on developing an anti-racism policy. I talked about this in a session at Wikimania last year, so I don't want to be super redundant, but to just kind of recap, we specifically focused on developing an anti-racism policy to be implemented across the organization and to also inform new work cultural practices rooted in restorative justice. We don't just want to have words on a page. We don't just want to have a document like a strategic plan that we point to, but we were really trying to move art and feminism towards a cultural shift with established policies and protocols to help this organization be consistent with its values. And we also, we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, but having regular org-wide trainings to help us keep in this alignment and stay on this trajectory. During this 6-month time, the leadership team, which Melissa and I are part of, became deeply engaged in this work. We participated in ongoing meetings. We had readings and discussions. We worked through past trauma, examining how white supremacy and Anglo-Saxon practices perpetrate in our everyday work culture. So things like sense of urgency, centering or overrepresenting the US culture. And then we also created operational definitions of concepts like equity and racism. And like an example I like to give very tangibly about this period of time, there was a meeting where our facilitator gave us the homework to reflect on how each of us were perpetrating white supremacy, Anglo-Saxon practices in our own work. And in that meeting, it was all people of color who were talking about this. So just kind of uplifting that we all live in these systems, and we can all still perpetrate these values. So as a team, though, we believe that we're a stronger organization now than we've ever been, now that we have these kind of policies in place. We're committed to continuing on this trajectory, and that this work was really kind of like the first steps in that sustainable change. And so I wanted to also share or uplift, because I know you were shared this ahead of time, but the Art and Feminism definition of equity. So this slide in blue highlighted text, it says, what is Art and Feminism's definition of equity? And then it has the following definition on the screen. So equity is the ongoing reflection and progressive action to redistribute resources. This redistribution of resources is done so in a way that makes survival within our current social and economic systems more possible for historically oppressed groups of people. Practicing equity means focusing on the experiences, needs, and narratives of these groups. And so I'll pause there and pass it over to Melissa.
Muchas gracias, Kira. Lucy, ¿tú podrías compartir la presentación por mí?
Yes, absolutely. No problem. Bear with me. I will just open them up for you. Okay. Got them. Yes, absolutely. My computer is wheezing to life now. Let me just share my screen and I will come forward to the correct slide in Spanish. Desktop 2, share. We are now going to go very speedily through the first slides while I get to the correct one. Okay. Speedy. And we will stop here. Is this correct, Melissa? Is this the correct slide? Next one. This one. Excellent. Just tell me when you'd like me to click forward.
Creo que sería estupendo si pudieras retroceder. Perdón. Si pudieras ir a la siguiente diapositiva, por favor. ¿Se me escucha muy bajito?
No, suena bien.
Ok, ok. Bueno, en realidad me gustaría complementar un poco lo que ya ha mencionado Kira, que es un poco el core, el corazón de lo que hemos venido haciendo en cuanto a equidad. Pero un poco yendo más atrás, una de las primeras formas en la que arte y feminismo decide emplear un enfoque de equidad es a través de sacar del foco a los Estados Unidos. Como ustedes deben saber, arte y feminismo es una campaña que surge en los Estados Unidos en el año 2013 y que fue fundada por artistas, investigadores, wikimedistas de allá, de Estados Unidos, quienes eran blancos predominantemente, ¿no? Pero al mismo tiempo, este grupo fundador tenía una visión muy crítica de su propio actuar. Em, y con el tiempo, pues más personas, la idea de arte y feminismo fue muy rápidamente fue adoptada por muchas personas alrededor del mundo, ¿no? En el primer evento participaron muchas sedes de manera espontánea en diversos países. Entonces ya la campaña no era algo exclusivo de los Estados Unidos, sino que era algo de lo que cada vez más personas en todo el mundo se estaban apropiando. Es decir, es una campaña internacional, ¿no? Que se coordina desde los Estados Unidos, pero que funciona más como una red global de activistas por la información sobre las artes y el feminismo. Entonces, ¿de qué manera se descentra los Estados Unidos? Eh, de muchas maneras, ¿no? En principio, perdón, el chat me distrae bastante, voy a tratar de no verlo. Hubo un proceso progresivo desde los fundadores de arte y feminismo por brindar cada vez más espacio a personas que pertenecían a grupos marginalizados, ¿no? Entonces, eso implicó principalmente brindar el liderazgo a otras personas que no eran de los grupos hegemónicos, ¿no? Eh, y esto se hizo a través de pues nuestra primera directora, nuestra primera directore ejecutive, Mackenzie Mack, que realizó pues un trabajo fenomenal en hacer de arte y feminismo una campaña más equitativa, ¿no? En términos de eh, ya un primer trabajo antirracista, en términos de también abordar las perspectivas de las personas no binarias. Seguramente muchos de ustedes recordarán el trabajo fenomenal que hizo Mackenzie Mack en arte y feminismo, ¿no? A eso se añade un programa de lead co-organizers, de organizadores colíderes, que pues son personas que no están en Estados Unidos y que pasan de manera progresiva a liderar el proyecto, ¿no? En mi caso, por ejemplo, yo empecé organizando eventos de arte y feminismo en Lima, en Perú, en 2015. Y en 2018 me dieron la oportunidad de ser parte del colectivo líder. Y esto con el fin de poder brindar la perspectiva de una persona que pues radica en el sur global. Y este programa lo hemos continuado hasta la actualidad. Las cohortes, los grupos de embajadores regionales, de lead co-organizers, han incluido, perdón, a personas de Ghana, de Canadá y actualmente somos una persona de Perú, una persona de Brasil y una persona de la India, ¿no? Y es una manera que ha encontrado la organización para poder tener todas estas perspectivas en la mesa de liderazgo, es decir, los coorganizadores líderes toman decisiones junto con el staff de arte y feminismo, ¿no? Porque arte y feminismo, al ser una ONG con sede en Estados Unidos, pues el staff está principalmente basado en este país, ¿no? Entonces, una manera de balancear este panorama legal, ¿no? Que ya nos viene dado, imagino que en todos sus países hay muchas cuestiones legales que a veces nos impiden ser más equitativos, esta fue una estrategia para poder eh, superar esto, ¿no? Quizás si vamos a la siguiente diapositiva, por favor. Otro tema importante es el tema de los idiomas, ¿no? Ya Kira ha mencionado cómo muchas veces cuando se trabaja pues desde los Estados Unidos, las personas que vienen a trabajar a proyectos de Estados Unidos tienen que comunicarse en inglés y eso se da como, se asume como algo natural, ¿no? Y durante muchos años trabajamos así, tenemos que decirlo, ¿no? Las personas que querían trabajar con arte y feminismo, gracias recordarme el tiempo pendiente. Tenían que hablar inglés, entonces nos dimos cuenta, yo por ejemplo tenía que hablar en inglés todo el tiempo, tenía muchas veces también que traducir documentos del inglés al español, y igual con todas las personas fuera de los Estados Unidos que no eran angloparlantes, y pues nos dimos cuenta que esto generaba pues burnout, ¿no? Agotamiento en las personas no angloparlantes. Y se han tomado muchas medidas para combatir ello, ¿no? Una de ellas es pues emplear más el trabajo de personas que son traductoras o intérpretes, es decir, poner eso como un costo dentro de nuestro presupuesto anual. Tratar de el propio proyecto hablar en varios idiomas, no solamente en inglés. Balancear un poco la traducción voluntaria con la traducción pagada. Pues de esta manera pensamos que nuestra comunidad está mucho más fuerte, tratamos nosotros de adaptarnos a las necesidades de las personas y no al revés. Y pues debo decir así por experiencia propia que em, el compromiso con arte y feminismos pues se incrementa al ver por mi parte, ¿no? Al ver estos cambios tan positivos centrados en personas que no estamos en Estados Unidos o en el norte global, ¿no? Y ya para cerrar, también, por ejemplo, las personas que no hablan inglés tienen pues un bono en sus salarios por todo ese esfuerzo que tienen que hacer de pues traducir constantemente todos los mensajes que se le envían en ese idioma, ¿no? De esta manera también de manera muy práctica se busca reconocer ello, ¿no? Bueno, lo dejo ahí entonces. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Melissa. I'm sorry that I was late with the slide there. My Google Deck froze. So apologies for that. I am going to stop sharing for just a second so that I can set up my screen for our next exercise. I've moved on to a just ridiculous number of screens now. It's not good. So our next exercise for you will take 10 minutes. It's 0 past the hour now, and we will go till 10 past the hour. We're going to be using Padlet again, and I'm just going to share my Padlet screen with you and explain what it is we will be doing. So Jessica has kindly shared the link there. And you can now see a very similar screen to what we saw before, but now in a lovely ocean blue. So the two questions I would like you to reflect on and to share your answers to are the following. How can you better support your existing community, thinking about some of the practices we've heard about today. One question that underpins this is perhaps to think about, when are you at your best? What support do you need? And how could you translate that into what other people need as well? So how can you better support your existing community, considering some of the practices you have heard? The second question is about what you are currently doing now. So what do you do at the moment to support your community and care for them? This is your chance to brag about the things that you are doing well, because often we are very critical of ourselves and we don't think about the good things that we do. So it's not even a humble brag, it's just a little brag. So what do you do that is good and supportive? So those are your two questions. What would you like to do better? And what do you do currently? So if you want to take time to respond to that Padlet in the same way as before, in any language that you like, we would love to see your answers, and we will go for another 8 minutes or so, and Sally and I will come in and read some of the answers as they come in. And if there are any problems with the link in the chat, just let us know and we can reshare. If you have any questions, also do just ask. I always get excited when I can see the people are typing up at the top. So looking forward to seeing your answers. And Jessica said in the chat, if you can't add to the Padlet, please do contribute in the chat and we can pop them in for you. But it is fun. And even if your answer is just a picture or a GIF or a piece of music, that's brilliant. We love to see it. I very much like the unicorn of language justice. That is very good. Talking about reflecting the dominant white lens experience and being more mindful of the language we use, that's so important. I read a really good guide to inclusive language recently, and if I can find the link, I will share it in our Google Doc, because a lot of it was quite awakening. There were some words and phrases I really had no idea about, and I consider myself to be quite on top of that sort of thing, and it really showed me that there is always so much to learn. Okay, we've got one brag. So one person is doing a brag there. So please do share your good news as well. Value each contribution. Thank the person for which he contributes. Respect their needs and speak about my own needs. That is really important. Speaking about your own needs and modeling a practice of self-care and empathy. If you're being led from the top, or if you're following in the footsteps of somebody who doesn't know their own needs, respect them, or speak about them, then you're modeling a behavior of ignoring those needs. And I think some of the best systems of governance and leadership come when people are open and respectful of that. So I really like that sharing there. And the valuing of contributions. Sometimes something funny and surprising can be revolutionary. I love that. Really thinking about language. We've got Obama there saying it requires some effort. It really does. I think when we are confronted with our language as being a place of oppression and a place of a lack of inclusivity, often people get very defensive, particularly white people, and that's not okay. We need to be, I'm going to steal a phrase here from the next slide, we need to be intentional about how we use language. Organize virtual events as much as offline, absolutely. Consider what volunteers could do to your campaigns, but how you as an organizer can help them develop as persons who would love to share with what little they have for the community. It's not merely counting the stats of edits, but how you've let them feel that they belong. Oh, that's so nice. Moving away from the numerical. I think there are more brags, everyone. What do you do to support your community? I would argue that by coming here today, you have supported your community because you have committed yourself to learning and to expanding your ideas of support. So we have maybe 2 more minutes, and I hope we'll get a few more contributions there before we go back into the final part of our presentation today.
Podría ir leyendo uno de los comentarios que tenemos en español en el Padlet, si les parece. Por ejemplo, cómo poder apoyar a la comunidad teniendo en cuenta ciertas de las prácticas que se han escuchado ahora mismo. Por ejemplo, abrir canales de contacto por Telegram o Signal para estar disponibles ofreciendo ayuda. Cualquier situación, ya sea problemas de edición, como situaciones de acoso. También súper bien utilizar Telegram y Signal y no WhatsApp, porque WhatsApp es un poco más inseguro. ¿Qué más tenemos en español? A ver. Ay, yo creo que salvo ser en español. No. Romper discursos establecidos, enseñar a identificar cuáles son los discursos supremacistas y cómo desmontarlos. Esta es una labor que me parece impresionante y titánica de lograr. Es complejo, ¿verdad? Porque identificarlo tiene esos matices que para unos significa un acto de supremacista y para otros no, ¿verdad? Bueno, creo que eso en español de momento. Gracias a las personas que están escribiendo en español también.
So we're just closing up this exercise now. And I really would like to focus in on, there is one response here that really stands out to me, that living in a third world country means a lot of hindrances before you can actually participate in an event. So we provide transportation allowance and data allowance. We also let them borrow devices if they'd like to. Or even if they aren't really into wiki projects at first, we just invite them to have snacks and a little chat, just so we let them feel that they're one of us. I really like that. I think that's really, really incredible. You are more than welcome to add to this afterwards as well. So to come back and see what people have written and what you would like to add or reflect on. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I will pass over to Kira and Melissa for their final section. Melissa, I think there was one slide left that we didn't get a chance to hear you talk about. So if you want to take a little bit more time and talk about that, that is very, very welcome. Or we can discuss it in questions. So I will open up. Would you prefer the English or Spanish deck, Kira and Melissa? And would you like to do it, or shall I?
Melissa, do you want to do your last slide? If not, I can move forward.
Yes, I'm also okay with slides in English.
I
I can present in Spanish.
I will put the English slide deck up, and then we can go from there. And if you just want to tell me when you would like it to move, I will do that. My computer allowing, because it is
Lucy,
weird.
I can
Oh, you did,
I can
Kira.
do
Okay,
it. Yeah,
fab.
yeah.
Okay, my computer thanks you from its deathbed.
No problem. So yes,
Excellent.
back over to you, Melissa.
No, I think you can continue, Kira.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is Kira speaking. Let me move to the next slide. So this is a slide that has a couple colored boxes on it. In a green box, it says unlearning. And then in a yellow box, it says we don't always know the answer and we won't always get it right. Just wanting to uplift that everything that we're talking about today, I might suggest that you kind of put this with a lens of this is a reference point or a case study. What works for us isn't going to work for everyone. And even some of what we're doing now might not work for us in the future. But this is a path that we're all on, and embracing the fact that we don't always know the answer and we're not going to always get it right allows us to take risks in doing this work. So just wanted to uplift that, because really working equitably is in direct conflict with everything that we've been entrenched in, all of us, living in a patriarchal, racist, classist, imperialist, colonialist, ableist, heteronormative, and oppressive society. This work never ends, and it's something that we continually seek with intention. And it can be messy. And it requires us to take these risks. And we have to, as an organization, be willing to take them. And even though I'm not trying to be self-deprecating, I am convinced my entire team is smarter than me. We still sometimes need that outside help. So on this next slide, it's the same green box that says unlearning. And then in a yellow box, it says examples we've engaged with outside support. And then there are 6 bullets that I'm going to run through. So these are some examples where we've sought that outside expertise in the past few years as an organization, recognizing that whereas we probably all collectively have touched on these various topics, that we were not necessarily experts. And also, I want to add the lens to that, that even if one of us were an expert at any of these topics, there's definitely a power dynamic and shift when bringing in an outside consultant. So just also to consider that. But some areas that Art and Feminism has engaged with outside expertise is around restorative justice and anti-Blackness workshops, training around anti-racist hiring. We worked with the third party for strategic planning. We had intense coaching around our anti-racism policy and equity statement. We're currently, as a leadership team, engaging in disability justice training. And then kind of individually, we've created personal unlearning and wellness funds for the leadership team. And so what that looks like is it's not a large amount of money, but each year annually, everyone on the leadership team gets a certain amount of money for their own journey of unlearning and wellness, kind of also understanding that learning and wellness go hand in hand. So just some examples of things like that fund can or has funded in the past: language lessons, executive coaching, museum admission. So those are just kind of some examples that fund has helped make way for our team. And then I wanted to check in to just see if Melissa, if you had thoughts to add to the unlearning section.
Gracias, Kira. Nuevamente, Melissa, aquí. Quizás solamente añadir que este proceso de tener este acompañamiento externo es un proceso como de diálogo que como organización hemos tenido que tener con, pues, por ejemplo, la Fundación Wikimedia, ¿no? Que en este momento es nuestro principal financista. Y hemos tenido pues que defender que estos temas son importantes, ¿no? Que tener una consultoría en antirracismo es tan importante como tener un desarrollador web o un diseñador gráfico o un comunicador, ¿no? Porque sin este apoyo, realmente las organizaciones no son sostenibles en el largo plazo, desde un enfoque de equidad, ¿no? Entonces, probablemente ustedes, sobre todo para los que son organizaciones Wikimedia, tienen un board con quienes tienen que, pues, dialogar estos temas y probablemente el hecho de que hagan eso con un board ya genera un aprendizaje también en estas otras personas, ¿no? Entonces, no siempre va a ser fácil conseguir este apoyo externo, pero vale la pena, ¿no? Gracias, Kira.
Thanks, Melissa. And so actually, it's a little fitting to share a recent example that embodies a lot of what we're talking about. So this slide has that same green and yellow box that says unlearning, and then in the yellow box it says Wikipedia and LGBT+ biographies. And there's a photo that has a typewriter and some plants, and then the guide that we'll be talking about. So we'll also be discussing this further in a session at Queering Wikipedia tomorrow. So plug for that. I think I saw Z in the room if you want to add some links about Queering Wikipedia. So to give context of this example and how I think ties in a lot of this, is that this was a guide that was created by Wikimedia Argentina, so in the global South in Spanish. And it was something that we at Art and Feminism were really excited about for many reasons, and we got in touch to offer help if it wanted or around an English translation. Vic at Wikimedia Argentina was already working on an English translation, but invited us in as collaborators. And we felt it really important to keep the context and keep the localization of South America in this guide, speaking to so many things we've already talked to in this session, right? About how so many resources within our movement are really centered in Western culture. And so having this guide centered in South America was very exciting to us. And we also just kind of kept bringing people into this collaboration. We also worked really closely with Owen Blacker, who is in the LGBT wiki user group, and helping work on this project. And then what was surfacing is that there's a term that can be a little, we'll say sticky, or a little, we'll say sticky, but the term is travesti. So in English translation, that is commonly known as a slur now. And so what we did is we engaged with more people, just kind of bringing more and more people into the project, experts in the field, a native Spanish speaker, a native English speaker, to write addendums around terminology and how it's evolved over time. And we really, I think another factor of this collaboration is that time was not the primary driver. We started working on this collaboration probably a year ago, and we just gave it the time and the space that it needed to be fully realized. And so, as I mentioned, we'll be talking about this actually more tomorrow at Queering Wikipedia, and I think we'll also be officially releasing the English translation at that event. So we're very much looking forward to that. But really want to just thank everyone for listening to us and being open to what we have to share. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation part. So I will pass it back over to the Let's Connect team.
Súper, muchas gracias, Kira. Ya pongo mi cámara, perdón. Estoy. Ahora quisiéramos pasar, antes de entrar ya directamente a toda la parte de como más de respuestas y de preguntas y respuestas. Tenemos un último ejercicio con un Padlet también, si Jessica pudiera poner los links ahí. Y con lo que queremos hacer con este ejercicio es hablar un poco y conocer un poco de parte de ustedes también sobre cuáles son el tipo como de experiencias y expertise que creen que necesitan tener en sus comunidades, personalmente también, en términos de cómo introducir los conceptos de equidad en su trabajo, en su activismo, en su vida, en su organización, en su colectiva, ¿verdad? Entonces, un poco también lo que les quiero leer antes es, por ejemplo, una de las definiciones que desde la Fundación tenemos sobre equidad, y para nosotros la equidad y la igualdad son conceptos distintos, ¿verdad? Entonces, por ejemplo, podemos hablar de igualdad en términos de que todas las personas tengan acceso al agua, ¿verdad? Pero, por ejemplo, en términos de equidad, ¿cuánto va a tener que movilizarse una persona que se encuentra en una zona rural, por ejemplo, para poder conseguir agua, versus una persona que vive en un ambiente urbano, que simplemente con abrir la canilla del baño ya va a tener agua, ¿verdad? Entonces, ¿cuáles son las diferencias y cuáles son ese tipo de pequeñas cuestiones que están ahí que pueden hacernos problematizar un poco más este tema, ¿no? Entonces, para nosotros, la equidad consiste, lo voy a leer, ¿verdad? en que las personas tengan un acceso justo a los recursos y oportunidades y así de manera consecuente identificar y desmantelar las barreras que resultan de los sistemas de opresión e injusticia que son directos y estructurales, ¿no? Los resultados equitativos, como les decía al inicio también, como tienen que ver más con un sistema de procesos de justicia, justicia también restaurativa, justicia transformativa, si se quiere, en términos de conseguir estos resultados equitativos deviene de reconocer cuáles son los comportamientos nuestros y colectivos que podemos modificar, las acciones, las políticas públicas, los procesos, las políticas internas de nuestras organizaciones también, y cómo distribuimos los recursos, ¿no? Entonces, de lo que se trata es ser organizaciones, personas, colectivas equitativas, es de que reconozcamos también cuáles son estos sistemas que oprimen a las personas de maneras distintas según sus identidades y cómo esas personas que se encuentran en el margen podemos nosotros no tratar de necesariamente acercarlos a nosotros, sino nosotros poder ir hacia donde ellos, ¿no? O sea, cómo en lugar de hacer que las personas en el margen tengan que hacer un doble trabajo para venir a nuestros centros, seamos nosotros quienes nos podamos acercar a ellos. Entonces, en base a eso, quiero hacerles, voy más lento, ven, yo les dije gracias, Jessica, que soy como una matraca, hablo muy rápido a veces. Entonces, con esta introducción sobre lo que definimos como equidad, ¿verdad? Les pasamos ahora el Padlet para escribir un poco sobre cuáles son los tipos de experiencias que necesitamos organizativa y colectivamente, y si quieren también individualmente, para agregar equidad en sus procesos. Entonces, no sé si está en el chat ya. Yo solo tengo una pantalla, gente, perdón. Entonces tengo que cruzarme por todos lados. Ahí está. Jessica, vos pusiste el último Padlet, ¿verdad? Sí. Súper. Si tienen dudas, póngannoslas en el chat, abran sus micrófonos también si quieren, y nosotros les vamos a responder cualquier duda que tengan o si necesitan alguna aclaración de lo que acabo de decir también.
The question we're asking about what types of expertise would be useful for your organization in terms of equity. We would love for you to put things on the Padlet, but also if anyone would like to raise their hand and just speak, you don't have to put your camera on. What kind of expertise would you love to bring to your organization in terms of equity? What would be helpful? And you can speak in any of the 4 languages we're operating in today. So please don't be shy and do feel able to raise your hand and come on mic, because we'd love to hear from you. Oh, I see a hand. Billet, please feel free to go ahead.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Ok, alors merci pour vos présentations qui nous informent, qui nous éduquent davantage, qui nous aident davantage à mieux comprendre les possibilités que nous pouvons avoir à travers le mouvement et à travers les initiatives telles que Art+Feminism. Alors, nous avons pris acte des possibilités de travailler sur les langues Alors, depuis cette année, j'accompagne, par exemple, un groupe de travail qui s'intéresse aux langues locales au Cameroun. Je suis du Cameroun. Donc, nous aimerions peut-être savoir comment faire pour bénéficier d'un accompagnement pour arriver à ce que les langues locales du Cameroun puissent, par exemple, être sur Wikipédia. Ça, c'est notre ambition la plus forte pour ces années prochaines. Comment collaborer à travers les langues, comme par exemple le Nigeria peut le faire en Yoruba, en Igbo. Carrément, eux, de ce côté, ils ont des sessions en leur langue maternelle. Donc, nous ambitionnons également à le faire au Cameroun, quoi. Donc, comment, avec votre participation, Let's Connect avec Jessica, que je salue aussi, comment arriver à cela, quoi. Et nous savons particulièrement que les langues locales sont désormais un point majeur au sein du mouvement. Merci.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that's actually a really good way to maybe start the discussion part of our session today. I'm conscious of the time. I'm going to leave the Padlet open for you to note ideas, but perhaps we could use that thought as a jumping off point here for more general discussion. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen, but the Padlet will still be available for you all to look at. And I'm going to open the English language slides to have in the background here. So here is really our part where we would like to invite discussions such as what Bill just mentioned there about future ways in which we could get support. We want this to be advice-based discussion, and we really would like for you participants to use this to ask Kira, to ask Melissa, to ask us about your experience and what might be helpful. I'm going to open the slides again, and I will also share in the background the resources document, to which I've added a few things throughout that conversation, links to querying Wikipedia and to some inclusive language documents. But I'm going to open the floor now. Sally and I will facilitate in both English and Spanish. And I would just like anyone who has a question to raise their hand. And perhaps, Jessica, if you wanted to speak to Bile's point just there, that might be a nice place to start.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy, and thank you so much, Renee, for your words and your constant participation. So I see Kira has written in the chat that perhaps Art and Feminism can reach out and support you. But I also see that there are some other staff members from the Wikimedia Foundation that have been working on local language support. So we can definitely connect you with them as well. I see Ben is here. So this is the idea, that from these sessions, we have these connections. So thank you, Renee.
There, and then Tila. So Esther, and then Tila after Esther.
Bueno, mi pregunta, mi cuestión es, esta desigualdad y esta falta de equidad que está en el contenido de Wikipedia, ¿qué podemos hacer para romper, por ejemplo, un ejemplo muy básico? ¿Cómo explicar en un artículo de la prehistoria el papel importante de las mujeres que ha sido ocultado. ¿Qué fuerza podemos tener para entrar en estos grandes artículos que muchos editores han ido mejorando y que nosotros queremos aportar esta parte que se está investigando, pero que es tan básica para la formación de la historia, ¿no? Entonces, en nuestras comunidades, ¿qué herramientas podemos dar a nuestras mujeres para que se atrevan a formalizar estas propuestas y a defenderlas? Concretamente, en mi grupo de trabajo trabajamos con estos grandes temas que están ocultos y que realmente son una gran desigualdad y una falta de equidad. Parte oculta del conocimiento de las mujeres.
I think that's a really important question. I'd love to open that up to Melissa and to Kira in the first instance, and then if anyone would like to add, please do raise your hand and we can do that.
This is Kira speaking. Actually, I wanted to invite Melissa in because I think that this might be a good opportunity for you to mention the research that you've done around I see it related to Esther's question.
Claro, sí, Melissa, nuevamente. Creo que la pregunta tiene más que ver con la equidad en el contenido de Wikipedia, que es algo que nos une pues a todos los que estamos aquí presentes. Es parte de nuestras misiones de trabajo y de nuestros objetivos. Algo que pienso que se puede hacer, y a raíz de esta investigación que menciona Kira, que hicimos acerca de las políticas de relevancia en Wikipedia en español, inglés y francés, es que se necesitan revisitar las políticas, ¿no? Y darles un enfoque de equidad, porque las políticas de Wikipedia actualmente no consideran todos los sesgos que existen en las fuentes secundarias, ¿no? Sesgos racistas, sesgos machistas y demás. Entonces, los wikipedistas, quienes editamos Wikipedia, no tenemos referencias para abordar esto que se encuentra en las fuentes. Y necesitamos tener un marco de orientación para abordar esto, ¿no? Y algo que también he visto que se está haciendo cada vez más es pues que más personas pertenecientes a comunidades subrepresentadas participen en espacios más técnicos de Wikipedia, ¿no? Como revisores, bibliotecarios o administradores. O que las personas que son administradores o bibliotecarios reciban capacitación en temas de equidad, ¿no? Es algo que pues la Fundación Wikimedia y también organizaciones como Art+Feminism y en realidad todos los afiliados Wikimedia podríamos trabajar más, ¿no? En hacer incidencia en eso, ¿no? Pienso que no es un tema que solo le corresponde a quienes estamos trabajando por la equidad de género, sino que nos corresponde a todos. Esa sería mi respuesta, Esther.
Gracias.
Thank you, Melissa. Perhaps Tila, would you like to speak?
Sure, thank you, Lucy. I think I'm going to switch to Portuguese. I'm going to take advantage of this great space. I'm Brazilian, so I've never done this in Portuguese in meetings like this, but I'll try. It's good to be here. Eu sou a Tila Capeleto, eu trabalho na Fundação Wikimedia, mas a partilha que eu quero fazer aqui agora tem mais a ver com a minha experiência como organizadora. Eu venho da comunidade, sou organizadora no âmbito das pessoas falantes do português, sobretudo de mulheres organizadoras falantes do português, na Wikipédia e em outros projetos. E eu achei esse exercício muito interessante, me fez pensar sobre quando nós começamos a editar, nós percebemos que um dos interesses que tínhamos era a equidade de conhecimento como um todo, não era só falar das mulheres, e principalmente não era só falar das mulheres brancas, né? Nós queríamos falar das mulheres e depois pensar em todas as margens, pensar em todas as subcomunidades de mulheres, né? No sentido de que nós somos todas mulheres e depois temos muitas diferenças entre nós. E, sobretudo, no âmbito da língua portuguesa, pensando nas comunidades de mulheres migrantes, mulheres rurais, mulheres negras, mulheres ciganas, que são coisas que têm a ver com a nossa cultura e com a nossa realidade. E, na altura, eu faço parte de um grupo de editoras, comecei, né, como voluntária no movimento, que se chama Wiki Editoras LX. Uma das coisas que foi fundamental para nós foi termos a consciência de que não sabemos tudo, não podemos saber tudo, precisamos de ajuda externa, precisamos fazer redes, ampliá-las, e entender que, muitas vezes, essas pessoas que podem nos trazer esse conteúdo não necessariamente têm interesse de se tornar wikimedistas ou fazer parte do movimento, mas nós precisamos de recursos para chegar a essas pessoas, recursos para trazer essas pessoas para perto da nossa organização, da nossa maneira de organizar, para que elas possam nos guiar nesta missão de ampliar o conteúdo com equidade, né? Então, é muito importante, creio, para as pessoas organizadoras que tenham essa capacidade de acessar essas redes de pessoas que não estão dentro das suas redes de wikimedistas, por exemplo, para que elas possam se aproximar e possam trazer o seu conhecimento, a sua voz, as suas histórias. E para isso nós precisamos de recursos de vários tipos, né? Não só financeiros, como também de redes de contato e redes de colaboração. Então era isso. Desculpem que eu falei um pouco rápido. Obrigada.
This is Kira speaking. Really just want to, I don't know, validate all your statements because yes. And I think what you're speaking to, I agree with, and just kind of what is at the center of what I'm hearing from that is we community. And so being able to, because let's be honest, right? Wiki is not always the most welcoming space, especially for new people to the movement. I mean, I'm very thankful and I love this container that Let's Connect has made for today. Like, this feels great to be in this space and community with all of you. But we also all know that this isn't everywhere in the movement. And in fact, this is kind of like a special pocket in some ways, right? And so I think it just speaking to a lot of what we've been talking about is being able to create that care and that support for people who are doing the work that is important to us is more important than the number of edits done in a campaign or the number of events that happen. That's something that we've been working on in Art and Feminism, is trying to think through what are more of the qualitative metrics instead of quantitative metrics on how we measure the success of our work. We're still working on that, honestly, but a lot of that has to do with the work that we've been doing in terms of that community building.
¿Tenemos algún otro tipo de preguntas o comentarios alrededor de las diferentes propuestas que nos han compartido Kira y Melissa hoy? Jessica, contame. Jessica, tenés levantada la mano para... Ah, ok.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question and to hear from Kira, Melissa, or anybody who has had experience in seeking external support for this. I know you mentioned that sometimes that external support can be difficult to find the right organization or the right person, that it can bring a power dynamic to the organization. And I feel that often affiliates or user groups are a bit like worried about bringing external support, how that might cost, or how to look for the right type of external support. And I'm just seeing on the Padlet that type of training and consultancy is something that people feel is needed. So what are some of the tips that you would give us based on your experience, and how to encourage when people are writing grant proposals or thinking about this, how can they bring in that external support when it's right?
Melissa, do you want to go first?
Claro, sí. Pienso que de hecho tú puedes hablar un poco más, Kira, acerca de las contrataciones de los consultores en equidad, pero pienso que para escoger, para definir con quién se va a trabajar, es importante que se vea siempre la trayectoria de la persona o de la cooperativa con la que se quiere trabajar, ¿no? Y que pues si estamos trabajando en temas de antirracismo, pues este grupo, esta cooperativa tiene que estar liderada por personas racializadas. Y de igual manera, primera persona.
Melissa, no sé si soy yo o te estás quedando un cacho pegada.
Lo
Ahí está.
siento, mi conexión es inestable. Bueno, eso básicamente, ¿no? Que las personas tienen que, con las que queremos trabajar, tienen que ser parte de estas comunidades y tienen que tener un recorrido en lo que han venido haciendo para que podamos aprender de ellas.
¿Cuáles creerías vos, Mel, que serían como diferentes indicadores que ustedes toman en cuenta cuando buscan a este tipo de personas o este tipo de servicios en términos de, por ejemplo, que sea una persona feminista o que sea una persona que se encuentre en el sur global, o más o menos cuáles son como los factores que ven?
Creo que de hecho Kira puede hablar más de esto, pero sí, en realidad con todos nuestros consultantes tenemos la política de que les compartimos nuestros principios de trabajo y pues les pedimos que nos compartan un poco de su trabajo previo en equidad, ¿no? De hecho, incluso con la empresa que hizo la página web es algo que lo consultamos para que pues haya afinidad, coherencia en nuestro trabajo, ¿no?
Súper, gracias. Kira, no sé si vos quisieras sumar algo a eso.
Sure. Thank you. This is Kira speaking. This goes a little bit more into a couple of things we've talked about, how we're not always going to get it right, but also really trying to center our values. So elaborating a little bit more on what Melissa was saying, a practice that we've been doing in all of our, not just consulting, but hiring, is we've been putting equity and values questions on our intake. So when somebody's writing a proposal to work with us or applying for a job with us, we have equity and values questions as part of our rubric, as to just ensure that from the onset of a relationship that we have some shared synergy and values there. And then we also, and so like, that's to say is like, that's different for everyone on like what the work that you are trying to do on what might be the right fit for you. And then from there, it's varied depending on what we've been working on. If it's gone from, you know, for instance, with our anti-racist hiring training, the first consultant we engaged with ended up not being the right fit. They were very centered on kind of the letter of the law, which isn't bad, and not that we were trying to break the law by any means, but it just wasn't, laws in the US aren't made on feminist practices, we'll just say that. And so it just wasn't exactly a direct fit. And so finding consultants, I don't know, it's a lot like finding a therapist. Like, it's not always the right fit. There's not really an exact science to it. But I think if you're centering your values and like what your objectives are, let that purpose kind of lead who you engage with. And then Jessica mentioned the word power dynamics, which I feel like that can be a whole other session. And I don't think we talk about power enough in the movement, but yeah, that's for another time.
¿Creen que viendo hacia adelante prospectivamente los diferentes consejos que nos han dado, valdría la pena que se cree alguna suerte de repositorio de personas con las que ustedes ya han trabajado, con las que confíen, para que otras personas también puedan poder acceder a ese mismo tipo de consultorías y que tal vez sea como facilitarles un paso a las personas también para encontrarse con este apoyo externo?
Yo pienso que sí, sería muy bueno tener un repositorio de ese conocimiento.
I think we have time for one more short question, if anyone has anything they would like to add. Behind the scenes, we have been adding, oh, Jessica, I see your hand.
Yeah, I've always been struck by the idea of kind of a feminist perspective around self-care and collective care. I know it's something we've talked about the whole session, but maybe if Kira, Melissa can give just a couple of examples of how they practice that, like in their day-to-day in their team. I would love to take some more knowledge from you.
Melissa, do you want to go first?
Ok. Pienso que ha sido por un viaje en distintas etapas. En principio, el feminismo interseccional era muy importante en arte y feminismo. Entonces, tratábamos de llegar a las reuniones y trabajar de tal manera que tuviéramos en consideración las circunstancias de cada quien, ¿no? Eso en un principio y nos llevó pues a hacer muchas cosas interesantes, como traer gente diversa al equipo, ¿no? Y creo que en los últimos años está bastante fuerte para nosotros la idea del cuidado, el autocuidado y el descanso como una práctica feminista, porque nos dimos cuenta que en el movimiento wiki, en los movimientos activistas en general, ¿no? Hay una tendencia a, pues, a veces ir más allá de los propios límites en favor de una causa. lo cual está muy bien, es muy admirable, pero no siempre es lo mejor para uno como persona, ¿no? Y de por sí ya las mujeres y las comunidades marginalizadas enfrentamos muchas cosas que hacen que nuestra existencia sea difícil. Entonces, nuestro trabajo voluntario, activista, no debería ser una razón más para que se nos haga difícil vivir en este mundo, ¿no? Entonces, por ejemplo, recuerdo muy claro cuando Kira llegó como directora ejecutiva, se acabaron las reuniones los domingos, ¿no? Que antes nos podíamos reunir horas los domingos y no, dejamos de hacerlo porque teníamos que pues separar un poco las cosas y tratar de no invadir tanto nuestras vidas personales, ¿no? Entonces, eso, el cuidado es una práctica feminista, creo que todos lo saben. Y también el recordarle a tu colega, pues, que está haciendo mucho, quizás, ¿no? El cuidado también entre todos, ¿no?
This is Kira speaking. Thanks, Melissa. I know we're running out of time, but I can think of like 2 quick examples that we've embedded in Art and Feminism. Yeah, Sunday meetings, no. But we've created an employee handbook, and in that employee handbook, it says that breaks are not only allowed, but encouraged in your workday. Basically, we have also, this is, I think, a unique thing to the US, but we have a 35-hour work week for our full-time staff, not 40-hour work week. And so the expectation is that you work a 7 hours a day, but the way that you structure that day is entirely up to you. Sure, come to the meetings and the times when we schedule together, but not only are breaks allowed, but encouraged. Go for a walk, take a nap, like take care of your needs is something that we're really trying to encourage within our work culture. I had another example, but it's escaped me now, so I'll stop.
That's amazing. Rebecca's asked in the chat if it would be possible to have a look at the handbook at some point, as Ireland should have one. I was going to say don't have one. I'm assuming from that they currently don't. I would love to ask Garana to share her thoughts, and then we will briefly wrap up after that. But Garana, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Lucy, very much. And thank you, everyone, for such an amazing learning clinic today. It was really great listening to you and learning from you a lot. So to introduce myself, I'm part of Let's Connect working group, but also GLAM manager at Wikimedia Serbia. And this is like some kind of question from GLAM manager's perspective. So we in Wikimedia Serbia, we are trying to have a lot of activities related to like diversity program dedicated to, for example, International Women's Day, Roma Day, and we are always trying to engage our community in those kind of activities. And one part is participating, but we cannot engage some part of our community of editors and Wikimedians to be part of that, to engage, to give their thoughts and their opinions. So I wanted to ask you, do you have any advice on how to engage more people?
This is Kira speaking. I think it's a great question. And it can be challenging because I think that, sure, all the work that everyone is doing is important, and it would be great to have more and more people involved in the work that we all do. And so I think kind of something that might be helpful to think about is reflecting on some of the themes that we talked about today in terms of like, what are we doing to care for our community, make it like that welcoming space where people not only want to join us in this work, but also, you know, keep coming back. And I think if we can kind of like shift our focus to centering that care, one, those numbers I think can start to become a little less important, but also the engagements that happen within your community can be a little bit more meaningful.
That seems like a really nice place to wrap up. I would love to extend my thanks to Kira and to Melissa for presenting today and sharing their knowledge. To Sally and Jessica for facilitating this with me, and to everyone who attended, Gorana for her hard work in the chat, and for all of you for spending time with us today. Please go in and edit the links and answers document to your heart's content. I can see Tila is in there already, which is perfect because my note-taking was a bit patchy. We have a Menti for evaluation. It's 2 quick questions. If you have a chance to fill it in, that would be much appreciated because it will help guide our practice going forward. You will receive an email from us in the next few days just with links to evaluation and to the resources is the word I'm looking for, resources that we spoke about today. But all that remains for me to say really is just thank you once again. It's always a pleasure to run these clinics. And as Jessica says in the chat, making our spaces grow and improve and unlearning the things that we need to unlearn. So yeah, I will just say thank you to everyone. Take good care and have good days, evenings, afternoons, mornings, wherever you are.